Great, thank you. Good evening. I wish I had the chance to interview those three extraordinary women, but I'm glad I didn't because they were absolutely fantastic, hugely inspiring. So this evening I had a kind of talk I had planned, but from what I've heard this evening, I'm just going to change it around a little bit, so bear with me. First of all, how many people saw the Blue Planet 2 last night? Show of hands. Well, for those that did and those that didn't, these words really struck me from the voice of nature, Sir David Attenborough. The health of our ocean are under threat. They are changing at a faster rate than at any other time in human history. There's never been a more crucial time to reveal what is going on beneath the surface of our seas. And I set up Nekton, Oxford Deep Ocean Research Institute, and became a submersible pilot, like many blokes, to impress the ladies. And the three most important ladies in my life are my wife and my two kids, Marina and Lara, 4 and 2. And there is a reason I'm telling you this story. I was out shopping with Marina a few weeks ago to go and buy some food for a lasagna. And there we were going past the counter, and we went past the meat counter, and I said, here's some meat, some minced meat that we need for the lasagna. And she said, okay, where's it from? And I said, well, it's from a cow. She said, how do I know it's from a cow? I said, because it says it is. She said, She wasn't very impressed with that answer. And then we were going past the fish counter, and went past that, and she said, oh, I know what that is. And I said, well, what is it? She said, that's a fish. I said, how do you know it's a fish? She said, because it's got eyes, I can see it. And we were going past the cow counter again on the way back. And she said, Daddy, why isn't there a head of a cow in there so I know it's come from a cow? And she had a profound point, which I realized a bit later. And it is that we are so disconnected from our ocean that we'll happily walk past a fish counter and see a head of a fish sitting there. But if we go past the cow counter, we don't have our cows there or cow's head there. Yeah, we'll happily turn on the TV and we'll see a fish being caught live or being skewered live on television. But if someone like Gordon Ramsay skewered a sheep live on television, Daily Mail would be an uproar. So she had a point. But anyway, as I mentioned earlier, or was mentioned earlier, I was an investigative journalist for many years. And I changed my path to set up this research institute. And I'm sure you may know many of these figures below. The ocean covers 71% of the coverage of our planet. Full ocean depth's about 11,000 meters, 7 miles down. Average depth of the ocean is 4,200 meters. About 95% of our planet's biosphere, the reservoir of life, is actually in the ocean. But that hides a pretty fundamental truth because it's a three-dimensional living space. That is where the majority of our life all comes from. And we've heard about some of the narrative of nightmares which are going on with the ocean at the moment. And there are a number of others which are worth pointing out. As I started to try and understand what was going on with the ocean, I put my journalist hat on and started asking difficult questions. Oxygen, for example, the second breath that we take always comes from the ocean. The problem we have is that low oxygen zones are increasing across the ocean by about 4.5 million square kilometers in the last few decades. The reason why that's a problem, not least because things in the ocean need some oxygen, but because it starts to produce nitrous oxide, which is 310 times more potent a gas than CO2. So it's starting to change the nitrogen cycle. And in the Bay of Bengal, there is one of the biggest dead zones which is growing. And the impact that's going to have on the planet is terrifying. Food security, nearly 3 billion people around the world get their basic source of proteins from fish. So if we knock out we overfish, as we have, and 75% of our fish stocks are overfished or overexploited, we come to a point where it's going to actually knock onto food security issues, which knock onto international security. So on and on it goes. Heat, for example, about 93% of all the anthropogenic heat that we've produced has already gone into the ocean. The reason why that's a bit of a challenge for us is because the heat that goes into the ocean drives thermal expansion. When you heat water, it expands. So 70% of sea level rise is now being driven by the heat which is going into the ocean. And when 13 of the 15 biggest cities on Earth are by by the coast, this becomes significant for all of us. So how the ocean changes affects all of us. It affects our livelihoods, our food security, the oxygen we breathe, the carbon cycle, how it regulates our climate. So it is the most critical environment on our planet. And this, when I found this out, this was what made me physically sick, because this is how much we actually know. When it comes to the deep water, the pelagic or the seafloor, it's a fraction of 1% that has ever been explored. So we've come to this absurd point where the most important part of our planet is the least known. You don't need to be Einstein to realize that really is not very sensible. And one of the other sort of baffling things which I came across when speaking to Professor Alex Rogers, who's our science director, was where is all the life in the ocean? And that's not a question you should ask a scientist, because a scientist will always come up with something slightly different. He said, well, it depends what you mean by life. If you mean biomass, and of course, you've got the greatest biomass on the surface, but the greatest biodiversity is actually in the Bathyal Zone, which goes from about 200 meters down to 3,000 meters. And it's a parabolic curve. So it peaks in about sort of around 1,000 to 2,000 meters. That is where the peak of biodiversity is in our ocean. And it's pretty much completely unexplored, unknown, and unresearched to us. So that's, as we've heard a lot this evening, those are some of the narrative of nightmares that we've heard. But I'm an optimist, and I'm going to explain why I am an optimist in a minute. But and this is one of the key reasons, because we now have the technology available to us to discover more of our planet in the next 10 years than we have in the last 100,000. We've got better maps of the moon and of Mars than we do of our own seabed. And what's astonishing, one of the things that are astonishing is that the majority of Britain is underwater. At least 95% of Britain is underwater, unmapped, unresearched, unexplored, largely unprotected. So when we talk about what we can do as a nation, we can start by sorting out our own country, our own nation, where we have territorial sovereignty to start to address some of these issues. But we're now in this age where, with the technology that we have, whether it's these manned submersibles or ROVs and sensors, that we've been able to gather more data in the last 2 years than we have in the rest of human history. So we're at this profound moment where we can start to drive a whole new era of exploration. And that is why I am optimistic, because if we look back through the history of exploration, look back at what exploration has achieved for us. Exploration has driven our progression. The journeys we've taken into the unknown have pushed back the frontiers of our knowledge and enabled us to progress. And that is where we stand today. We have that moment, that opportunity where we can explore this unknown frontier and start to transform our relationship to ourselves and our planet. So I set up Nekton, and one of the challenges with setting up any organization is to work out what your mission statement should be. So we struggled with it, and then I went to NASA, and I found that NASA's mission was to explore the heights of the skies to reveal the unknown for the benefit of humankind. So I thought, well, they're bloody clever, I'll copy them, and decided that we should explore the deep ocean to reveal the unknown for the benefit of humankind. And then, one of the other challenges of trying to set up an organization is over the name of your organization. So we came up with Nekton. I went to see a guy called Don Walsh, who's kind of my guru. He was one of the... there's only 3 people that have ever been to the full ocean depth. There was Don Walsh, Jacques Picard, who went down in 1960, and then Jim Cameron, who went down in 2012. And I was talking to Don. I said, I need a name for my organisation. What should I call it? And he turned around to me and said, Ollie, just don't put the word fucking blue anywhere near it. There are too many ocean organisations with the word blue in it. And I was okay, thanks, Don. I started to read up about his project. And when they went to full ocean depth, the military gave it a code name, and they codenamed it Project Nekton, because Nekton are the aquatic animals that can swim against the current. And so I thought, let's call it Nekton. And Don said, that's a fucking good idea, well done. So hence we called Nekton. But our strategy to accelerate, our goal is to accelerate the sustainable governance of the ocean. And we've looked at the pillars of exploration, the pillars of adventure. And I think they're based on 4 key principles. One is about the discovery of new knowledge, scientific research. So our mission is to undertake research into the Bathyal Zone to create a step change in our knowledge and understanding of the ocean. The second area is about sharing that knowledge with people. 2 minutes, shit. Okay, this is going to have to speed up. So the second area is around the ability to communicate what it is that you discover. So we need to inspire people with a new narrative. We need to get away from the narrative of nightmares and inspire people with a dream. Martin Luther King didn't say, I have a nightmare. He said, I have a dream. And that is what we need to fundamentally present to people. We need to look to space and we need to ask the question, what are the great organizations in like NASA doing which we can learn from? They are talking in a positive light about looking for new life, things that trigger the imagination, things that are mission-based, narratives about exceptionalism and collective human achievement. These are things which should embody the narrative of exploration into the deep ocean. And I want to leave you with, video works, that's a surprise, until they throw me off the stage. I want to show you something which is why exploration, our exploration is so exciting. This is going down in these submersibles, and what you can see with the type of submersibles that we use, and I believe they're like the shuttles for this new era of exploration, is their transparent pressure hull, and that enables us to witness people in the deep. And it's that single thing that helps to create the vital human link that we need to reconnect us with the ocean. So if you can watch Blue Planet series, the episode next week, it's all about the deep ocean where they're going to be using a lot of these submersibles. So I won't spoil it by giving you some of the things which were discovered on it. This is descending down a previously unseen volcano in the ocean, and all these extraordinary wire corals and black corals and new species and everything else. And this, you can't really see it because the lights are up, but we're as if we're sort of flying across the horizon, flying across the side of a cliff here. I just want to leave you with one final thought, which is why adventure and why exploration is so important. Because you saw in that little film that we are all explorers. Because we all want to discover something new. We all need the unknown. It gives us a sense of purpose. It gives us imagination. We want to know what is beyond. And when we journey there, wherever it is, whatever we do, whatever journey we undertake, we learn something new. And that transforms our understanding of who we are as people, as individuals, as members of families, of communities, and our place in the world. So I implore you to go out and explore and learn about the world. Thank you.